Hi guys, I just wanted to make a quick little short video. It's going to show a few things. I just wanted to update. This is going to be like 3.5 basically here. Um, and this is about the treasure chest. And I wanted to update a couple things about the treasure chest. One of them is a better way to spawn the loot. And let me make sure that everything is working here. Looks like my microphone is working. Looks like that's working. It's capturing. It's capturing. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to look at was basically when I had it set up in the other video, it was spawning loot, and then it was spawning loot again, and spawning loot again, and spawning loot again, and you would have had to do a million of those out as far as you wanted to spawn loot, which was really inconvenient and inefficient. So my idea was I was going to go back and fix that to where it uses a for loop, so that way it creates the loot um, based on the for loop, and you only have to use one spawn actor um, function. So that's basically what this video is about. Is so that if you guys are watching it and you're going, oh man, how am I going to get this to spawn loot like faster and not have to deal with um, putting a ton of these spawn actors out there. The way I had it set up was just like a fast way to test it, and I didn't really I was just going like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be changing it later. So today I figured, why not? I'll just go change it. So uh, all you really have to do for this is the way that we had it. Let me go ahead and just move this right here. So this and this, we're gonna disconnect it, and this is what I had. I had it where it spawned actor like this, and then it was pulling the actor from here, from this class a list array, and it was pulling it from this index, which was a random index, right? And it's always going to pull a random index. We definitely want it to continue to pull a random index, obviously, right? But we we want to make sure that it's pulling like a, we want to make sure that it's pulling like a specific amount at random, right? We don't want it to always be 2 pieces of loot or 6 pieces of loot. We want it to be a random number of loot, but we want to be able to control that random number. So like maybe if it's this chest, we want it to have, like, say it's a bigger chest. Maybe you want it to drop quite a few white items, and a few blues and a few epics and maybe a legendary, right? And so the fastest way to do that without having to have all those extra, which what we were doing before was basically doing all of this. We were doing it again. We were calling another set of these. We were pulling it out here and doing this, and we were just running the oh my god, what the hell? We were running this to there, and we were just creating another one like right afterward and setting the location from this, right? And this was coming down to that next, so it would spawn the same location every time. And that's like, yeah, okay, yeah, now you got 2 pieces of loot, but why do it that way, right? That's stupid. We don't really want to do that officially. We don't want that to be the way that it is for the final version. So you get a for loop, and this is nothing special. I'll just delete it so you can see exactly what I'm going to do. Just pull off from your branch that comes from um, your common loot amount roll. And this is the other thing. We don't actually need the common loot amount, I don't think, anymore. I'm pretty sure we're going to get rid of this too. Let me see, what did we have? We had this for you roll. Yeah, we don't need this because, see, this is stupid, right? This is going to say, like, it doesn't really matter if you get. I mean, if you want to leave this in, you can. You could say like, maybe you want to give them a chance to have if you want to throw in extra percentages. It's like, that's one thing, because we're checking to see if they rolled better than a 0. Well, if you're always going to roll better than a 0, because back here it's set from 1 to 100, and so you're always going to be rolling better than 0. So you should almost always, I mean, essentially, unless if there's some kind of um, fucking reason why it can randomly roll 0 for some reason. Um, so if that ever happens, then yeah, you might get no pieces of loot, right? If you took this out and you disconnected this completely, and you just went from here to there, and it would say, oh, well, you rolled a 0. Now you don't get any loot because these wouldn't be here, and those would be gone. So it would just say, oh, you rolled a 0. You don't get a piece of loot because it's not going to continue. It's going to say false. You rolled 0. But if you roll better than 0, you're going to get something from this, right? Now, if you wanted to say, hey, look, I want this chest to be able to offer more loot if they get a high roll. So let's say they rolled 0, or I mean, like, you know, higher than 0, obviously, right here, right? So they roll higher than 0, and off of this one. Now, the thing about this is that if you do this, you're kind of doing it. This is going to be, if you want to base it off the same roll, off of this roll, you can, but you can also use it with a different one. So now, if you want them to roll like a second time to see if they get more loot than just what it's going to give you for this, you could say, well, I want it to spawn, you know, at another random number between greater than like 50. If it's greater than 50, then maybe like, oh, maybe this does something else. Like, oh, now you get this many pieces of loot. Versus just going straight to here and saying you're going to get a random number of between 1 and 15. You might get, because you rolled an extra roll and you rolled 50 on that extra roll, you are going to now get between 20 and 30 pieces of loot. Who knows? You know, but to keep it really simple, let's just delete all these, and we're going to just put this, connect this straight to the spawn actor. Sorry, not straight to the spawn actor. Connect this, pull that out, and go for loop, right? And go down to your for loop there, and put in a for loop, okay? And then we're going to actually take all this and pull this back. So we're going to go here, like that, and pull that. And we're going to pull those back to here, okay? And then we're going to also pull that, and we're just going to pull those here. And I'm just going to kind of straighten this out in a second. So like, there we go. Now that's shortened it up quite a bit, right? However, I just realized I need to add one more thing. So I'll pull these out a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. So like that. So then we take this, we just duplicate that. So now, when we roll better than 0, we're going to get loot. We know we're going to give the player loot, right? They're going to get the loot. So how many pieces do we want them to get? Well, that's what this random integer is for, right? This one is going to go from 0 to however many you want to drop. If you want 50 pieces of loot to drop, you're going to say, well, we're going to put that in there. Okay, that's the last index of the for loop. And you can put 0 in the first one because it starts at 0. So you do this, compile that. Now you've got your common one set up so that anytime they are rarity roll, their rarity roll, which is determining whether they get just whites or if they get whites and blues or whites, blues, and purples or whatever, right? If their rarity roll is better than 0, then they're at least going to start getting items from this integer here. And if this rolls 25, it's going to for loop that 25 times and give them 25 items. Okay? On a for loop, you just have to remember one thing. If you're putting in very, very large amounts, like 10,000, you're going to have lag, and it's going to stop the game until it finishes. So that is if it rolls a 10,000. If I put in 10,000 here, and I go like this, and I click on one of these chests, and it rolls a big number, it's gonna lag the game, and it's gonna put shit tons on there. But it's going to lag the game until it finishes, and you can see it happening as I click on those chests. But I'm not moving much, but that's crazy right there because I just put like 50,000 things on the screen. Okay, so let's close that. Now we don't want to do that. So don't put 10,000 in there because that's fucking stupid. Don't do that. Okay, and then if you want to do 10,000 of something, you're probably going to break your game anyway. So you want to keep your numbers kind of small. You can do in probably fairly, you know, if you wanted to do 50 to 100 to 200 or something, that's not going to do any problems. You might start getting some lag, like I was just getting post lag, which was like the lag of me walking around and having these items on the screen, and that's not that bad. But like, yeah, that would not really be good for a game where, like, you know, you've got a player that is playing the game. You don't want them to get a bad experience. You don't want to do that. So you want to keep your numbers kind of small. But like, I'm not even going to do 50 because there's no reason why I need 50 pieces of loot, right? But if I go 5, that number is now going to allow me to only ever drop between 1 and 6, because 0 is still a number. It counts in there. So there's 3, there's 1, there's 1, and this is, see, there's 2 whites. There's 2, looks like 2 whites. And maybe another white behind there. I don't know. Might have been another blue, actually. It looks like a blue. Those are all blues. And then here's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that is what you kind of want to do. Now, I would say for like whites, probably between maybe, I don't know, give them a chance of having like 15, right? So you set it to 14. That's a total of 15 because you count 0. So then there's a chance of them getting up to 15 white items, you know, on a rare roll or something. It's not really a rare roll. It's just that, oh, they just got lucky, you know, and they got some more items. But now you're going to have like, oh, I got a nice, decent amount of items each time. And it still rolls 2. You know, it's not always going to roll good. 3 and 1, 2, 3, whatever, 4, 5 or something like that. And so that's a really quick way to set up like completely random number amount to go with the random generation of everything else, right? So that's the way I would set it up for that really, really quickly. And it allows you to, now you can just modify those numbers. And if you want to make this, there was something else I was going to say. If you want to, like I said, if you want to add another roll in there and do what I was saying before, that's a whole nother option. You could do it. You could say, well, I wanna, you know, allow players to get an extra percentage, like give them other. It's not like they know they're getting it, but it's kind of like it's like a secondary roll in to see if they got lucky, right? See if they got lucky. Oh, they got lucky, and that's gonna give them something else up here. And you could put the functionality. And you can say, yeah, that they rolled. Not only did they roll this, but they also rolled what this functionality is up here. And it's totally up to you how you do that. It really doesn't matter. But this is the basics of how you can set that stuff up now. And because of that, you can go to all your other ones and do the exact same thing. We don't need this anymore. We remove our random integer, our rare loot amount roll. We remove all that, right? And we just go in and we bring this back here. Of course, we want that too. Bring this all back to here, and we connect the true to there, and then it'll grab between 0 and 10 blues and put them on the screen. But probably don't want 10, right? We probably want 5, because blues are supposed to be a little bit more rare. We don't want them just flying out like, you know, larva out of a fucking garbage can. We on the purples, I'm gonna delete all that again, right? And then just bring these back and pull these here and set this one to actually to like, I'm gonna say 3, right? Because maybe we want them to have 3 pieces every once in a while. And then you know, on the legendary one, probably going to go with 2, but the idea is that because it's a 99% or it's a 1% chance that they're ever going to get one, it's so rare to begin with that there's probably not going to be a chance that they're going to roll 2 on anyways, or that they're going to get 2, and I mean, it's so rare that they're even going to get 1 that it doesn't matter if they get 2 at the same time. I don't really care. But essentially, you can always add extra like rolls and stuff to make it harder and things like that for them to get it. So let's just delete those again. grab this, grab all these, pull them back, and grab the edge of this, pull it back, and set this to 2, right? It's already to 2, actually. I already had it to 2. And then just connect that. And now you've got a nice, small system that doesn't require as much like craziness going on there. It looks a little bit more clean. And it works, right? It still works. That's what's cool about it. It's functional, and it's super simple, and you didn't even have to do much change. There's like some of those, and these are probably going to roll more. See, boom, 4 blues that dropped. You got some good shit there. But again, like, that's the thing. If you want a chest to automatically be different than these ones, and you want it to, you know that chest is going to drop epics, then you take that epic percent chance, and on that specific chest, on that specific version of the chest, you might do something that's similar to all this, right? You may make another chest that has almost all this, or exactly the same, functionality, but in this roll, the rarity roll, you might want to put your epics down to like 10%. That way, if it's greater than a 10, it's going to drop epics, because you want people to be able to get epics from that chest, right? Say maybe that's a boss chest. It's automatically going to drop epics. So then there they go. They drop, right? And that makes more sense. Like, yeah, I want the epics to drop right off of a really awesome chest. So you would just make versions of chests that are specific. And that way you can place those. You'll have all these like different versions of the chest, and you can place them in different locations. And if you want the one at the end of the map, like the boss chest, to be awesome, then it's going to be awesome. You could even set it so that it has a 100% chance. So if it's better than 0, it'll drop the epics, right? So that'll always drop an epic. And then you could say, I want this specific chest to drop a legendary every time. Better than 0, it'll drop one every time. Essentially, it should drop one every time. And there it goes. See? And there it goes. And it's going to drop them because it can go up to that many. Now, what's weird is it dropped 3 of them right there, which is kind of confusing. I thought I only set it to 2. Oh yeah, I set it to 2, but I forgot I included 0, right? See, there was my mistake. I included 0. That is supposed to be 1. So 0 and 1, not 2. So that'll only drop 2 items. Now, if I only wanted to drop 1, we would just say 0 and 0, right? And it's going to only drop 1. Because it's always going to pull 0. The number's always going to be 0. It can't be anything else. And then you just go boom. It's always going to drop 1 legendary and 1, some epics. But every single one is going to drop 1 legendary every time. And there you go. This is still a little messy, and honestly, the way I would probably do it is I would straighten this out a little bit, maybe pull this one over here so that it's nice, and then I would probably, well, I hate this kind of stuff. That's my thing, but I like to set it up. So I would probably move this down so that these are actually pulling from the center and splitting up, or like somewhere down in that area, and that way they're not pulled from way up here. And then it kind of splits and goes up, right? But in that sense, you can say, okay, well, I want this to come up like that, come through here, and then I want this one to be like that, and then this one here, or maybe just push it up to the top, actually. Let's push this one up to the top. So that one's up to the top, and then it doesn't quite look as bad because you can put this up there if you want to, and you can make a more like nice, smooth-looking system. And then you could actually take another one of these. You could even split it for the bottom, split 2 for the top and 2 for the bottom, so that these ones are just deleted. And then you would drag one out here and connect it to the bottom one right here. And place, and then double click it right here and do one like this, and it'll actually come down, and then it'll split again like right here, and that'll allow you to pull down and connect it to that one. Right? That'll look. It might look a little crazy, but at least it kind of um, makes more sense to me a little bit in my head. Like this could even be fixed up a little bit. You can really kind of modify the way that things are so that they look clean and don't look so weird and stuff. Anyway, that's like a nice new setup, so that way if you guys feel like doing it this way, you have that ability to do it. And you don't have to wonder how to do it, and you don't have to like try to, you're not changing a bunch of stuff. So anyway, um, so there's that, and then one other thing I wanted to talk about was I had a person asking me about these right here, enable click events and enable mouse over events, and he was trying to figure out how to get that to work on his controller, and it wasn't like he had these, he was pulling them out, he said he was pulling them out and they weren't connecting and weren't allowing him to connect to them because his controller didn't have these two booleans right here. Now, from as far as I know, any controller that you create should have those booleans if it's based off of the player class. Like, you can go to your my project over here and move this one out of the way. You can go to your game settings in the world settings. If your game is set to something different, like your game class or your game mode, whatever it's going to be, right? You should have a game mode. This one mine's set to a game mode that is a C++ game mode. Now, if yours is set to the template of the Blueprint project, it should still have those booleans on your player controller that came with the template, right? If you made a completely different class, it might not have them, but it should. Even if you come in here and you make a character, player controller, you could do new blueprint from a player controller that's just based off of the parent class player controller. It's not based off of my D&D test project controller, which is what this controller is, the D&D test project player controller. I could make a blueprint from that. I can say I want the D&D test project player controller. I can make that from there, and it will still have the same exact options as what I've got right now. And I'm also going to do this. I'm going to make this anyways because I wanted to show you something else. But essentially, if you change this to my other game mode I have here for testing, say you make a new game mode and you want to put in the player controller that we just created, the new, not that one, that was not it. Where'd it go? We want it to try new blueprint right here, right? New blueprint number 1, which is based off the player controller. So we're gonna be using player controller blueprint, which is going to be like a floating, or I mean, well, actually, it's not. What the hell? It's supposed to. Okay, what did it do? Oh, it's because I'm not. Let me make sure it's override. It's not. Top down. Oh, because that's right. I'm using this game setup. I'm using that. Yeah. So I've got the new blueprint right here. Now, you should still be able to go into this new blueprint, and you should still be able to call from itself, which is right here, right? This is the event graph from the new blueprint right here. You should be able to go in here and call out enable click events, set enable click events. That is for this instance. When you hit compile and hit save, it's going to work, right? It's not going to tell you there's a problem. And you can say set enable, right? And this is on context sensitive mouse interface. It's all under mouse interface, and these things should be here. And if they're not there, then you have some kind of issue that's with the controller, that it's not being inheriting from the player controller base class. Like all the player controller base classes should have this, because these are like hard coded into the base class that is inherited, that all the normal, or like all these test template controllers get inherited from and stuff. So if you make like some kind of custom C++ controller class that doesn't inherit from that, then you might have stuff that's not going to be there. It won't have those because they're not there. But for the most part, they should be there. So the thing is that um, I was while this was kind of arising and this question was being asked and stuff, and I started thinking about it. I was thinking, well, we could take this out, right? And we could have it just go from here and skip that, and we could have it not do that, right? And we can have these enable mouse events be done on the other blueprint, right? I can say enable or set enable mouse events and set that, and also we want to set enable click events, right? So we could set both of them from here. From the controller now that we're using, right? We're using this controller on our blueprint thing. Says that the blueprint thing here says the new blueprint is the player controller. Okay, and it's overriding it. So when we hit play, we're using that. But what happens is when you come over to the chests, they don't work. They don't work, and that's because click events are not working when you set it that way. It's not actually enabling click events the way that it's supposed to be when you do it that way. The button presses still work because they don't require enable click events. They're button events, so they're different. But the click events on the actual chest will not work. So essentially, I was thinking like, oh yeah, you should be able to just remove that whole part and put it right here and have on your controller just enable them at the beginning, at event begin play. But essentially that doesn't work, and I'm trying to figure out exactly if there's a better way to do it. Because, I mean, if you get player controller, you should essentially be able to do set, let's just go, you might have to. That might be why. Enable mouse over click events. Let's see. Yeah, we want click events, and this might be why it's not working. Maybe you have to call from get the player controller before you call it, even if you're in the player controller, and that might be because you're actually pulling from the player controller's like base class information. It's kind of weird, and if it works, then cool, but it's kind of weird. Enable mouse over events is the other one we need, right? So we need that, or not get. We don't need to get. We need to get rid of these. That's what we need to get. Set enable mouse over events. And so let's just try setting these two in the controller, right? And see if it still works. Because essentially we shouldn't have to put this functionality in the treasure chest, right? The treasure chest shouldn't be having to enable click events for the controller. The controller should be able to do that. But let's see if it works. Nope, still doesn't work. And like I said, I think that that for right now, it might just be the way that it works for right now. That I might have to figure out the reason why we can't do that and it's not working. Because I do a lot of blueprinting at my work, but I can't think of the reason why it wouldn't work like that right now off the top of my head. But I've been doing a lot of blueprinting. I worked on blueprinting for like 8 hours today, and on other stuff. And so for now, we're just gonna go ahead and leave it right here on this tutorial project. And so don't take this out for now. If you are having issues connecting to your mouse over in your click events, you will have to check with other possible solutions that have to do with like the event click and the mouse over events. So you can do some research on Google about how to set that up or how to get these enabled, because essentially these have to be enabled in order to do clicking and stuff for an actor of any kind. If you want the mouse or whatever to actually interact with an actor, you have to do that. That's how these doors right here work. So when I click on a door, the door has to know that you're clicking on it, so it won't open if you don't have those enabled. So that's kind of how that is. And for now, we're just gonna stick with that. But again, like this whole system, I'm hoping that really clears it up for some people. And don't mind this error; it has to do with something else. And let's see, we're going to close the new blueprint, and we're going to set it back up with the other blueprint, right? So let me go back here. So we can go back in here and just change this to to my character, whatever it is. And your characters aren't going to get changed, so you don't need to worry about that. And I'm just going to set this back to my original test project game mode, and I'm going to delete these two new ones that I made. Because actually this one, I used that one to basically show you what I wanted to show you with the other one. I didn't really need to make two of them. So that's that, and I had a game mode that I don't need anymore. So let's get rid of that. Oops. And the treasure chest one more time. Let's go to the spawn item function. So yeah, one more time. This is basically this is the way you'll want to set it up now. And I really hope that works for you guys. And if there's anything else that you kind of want to know about how you could maybe make it even more complex or something, maybe pass me a question on there on the video, and I'll see what I can do about answering it if it has something to do with, like, that type of stuff. So yeah, the next video, I've had questions about when it's going to be coming out, and the for the pickup, for like the pickup items, and I am trying to get to it. It's like I work every day of the week pretty much, and so the only time I have to do it really is like during the weekend, that I really want to sit down and like focus on doing a video for an hour. So I'm going to try to. I might be going out of town this weekend, so I probably won't be able to get to it this weekend, but hopefully sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks I'll try to get it done. Um, and I'll let you, I'll try to, pass that information along to my page as soon as that happens. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I hope that really kind of cleared up some things if anybody was wondering about that stuff. So, yeah, you guys, I'll catch you next time. Take care.